Okay, so this is a special episode of Sunday Plus that we are filming, and we have guests. Kevin has been a multi-time co-host of the show, so y'all recognize Kevin. And our lovely guests here. Well, introduce yourselves. Let's do that.
My name is Emerson. I joined Creekwood United Methodist Church, I want to say a little bit over a year ago, and I have been coming to services ever since, and it's been amazing. So yeah, that's me, Emerson Smith.
My name is Natalie Emerson. I'm a salt leader at Creekwood, and I've been here for about 5 years, maybe a little bit over.
Nice. Okay, so the reason they are here is we are here talking specifically about youth, not just here at Creekwood, but youth on a national or even Texas, whatever level, however we want to kind of put that together. But to address the crosses in the room, yes, it is currently Ash Wednesday. We just finished our Ash Wednesday worship, so we're all sporting some extra ashy bling.
Can I say we all got our ashes in church? We can cut that if we need to.
I will never cut that. No. That's,
I was gonna ask Alex if I could do the benediction and just say that.
Thank you for getting your ashes in church. Right. Yes, that's
and yeah, not tell him what I was gonna say beforehand too. And
he would have laughed a little too hard at that, and then theoretically rebuked you later.
Right. I was gonna say there would be maybe an off vibe coming into the office tomorrow. leaving.
Why is everyone so weird around me today? Kevin, I need to see you in my office. All right, so you two just got back from a midwinter retreat.
Yes.
And so I wanted to talk about that. That was out at Bridgeport. Mm-hmm. Had either of you done a midwinter at Bridgeport before? No?
I had done similar things in my hometown, New Jersey. But
you're from Jersey?
I am. I lived there for 14 years, and then I moved here.
Who? I didn't know.
Yeah.
I found that out on the way to Bridgeport.
Oh.
This is true. Yeah, neither of us have we haven't done anything like this. I had something kind of similar, Young Life in New Jersey. We did some sort of winter retreat. But we actually didn't really know each other that well prior to going to this. We had kind of seen each other in passing, and then I was like, I really don't want to do this 2-hour drive alone. And I was like, okay, she's the only other senior girl going. Let me see if she want to drive together. So we ended up driving, got stuck in a lot of traffic, but it was probably one of the best car drives and conversations
it worked out genuinely
I've
for
ever
the best.
had.
Yes.
And we have been texting and hanging out since then. Start of a friendship.
I know, right? Look at me. Having nothing to do with that. Truly.
All right, so both of your first time at Bridgeport. First of all, talk about the camp, just the terrain, the hill, getting what you get to look at all the meals, like the view out there. Talk about what that was like for you guys as first timers, because I've been going to Bridgeport since I was very young, and it's not lost on me how gorgeous it is, but it's fun to hear somebody who's for the first time going, whoa, dang, this is super nice.
Do you want to start it off or do you want me to?
Sure. Well, I'd say whenever we drove in, it was a bit darker, and it was also a little bit hard to navigate. We had to get the map out
I thought I was going to drive myself off the road.
Yeah. However, the cabins that we stayed in were genuinely so lovely.
Uphill or downhill?
We were downhill.
We were lakeside.
That's good cabins.
Yeah, we were lakeside.
Cabins are uphill. And
Yeah, I had to top for the first time.
my first many years, but I was going before those downhill cabins were built.
Yeah. Well, and they probably have the same mattresses from when you were there, because
I
laid down and it was like the ice cream and a chocolate taco, man. Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
We were downhill, and it was fabulous. The beds were great. The room setup was wonderful. It took us a little bit to find it, but we found it. And then as it became morning the next day, that's when things, like you said, it's really prominent how beautiful the place actually is. The morning air was nice. There was sunrises and sunsets. I think the most beautiful sunset we saw was Sunday dinner or lunch.
Saturday dinner.
Saturday dinner.
Yeah.
And we just look out after we had our worship, and then we go to lunch, and we look out, and it's just like the sky was painted. It was gorgeous, and you have that big cross backdrop. It's genuinely stunning with the lake as well. It's amazing. And the air, we kept commenting, the air smells so fresh.
Oh, yeah. I think for me, we had driven in super dark outside. And so I was like, okay, like, it's cute. It's your traditional camp. And I was like, cool. And it said lakeside cabin. And I was like, I do not see a lake. I was like, sure. Sure, we'll just go with it. And we woke up the next morning, and both of us were on the struggle bus during this trip. We were not feeling too hot. And so that first uphill in the morning, when we realized that's what we were walking up,
The hill.
I was ready to just go right back to bed. I was like, nah. And then we get to the top, and I'm like, I turn around because I think Cora was walking behind us, and so I turn around, and it's just beautiful lake and so much green forest.
It's breathtaking.
And like, oh my gosh, it was like at that moment the wind kind of came on. I was like, oh my gosh, it was just so beautiful. And it like, I think we both just kind of stood there for a second and really reflected on like, this is our weekend of healing, because we've both had a lot going on in our lives lately. And so I think kind of that initial moment, I feel like I kind of just, I felt like God was just hugging me in that moment. Like I felt his presence truly. And I think waking up that morning not feeling great and that being just the first like of the morning was just, it was so beautiful. Yeah.
They chose the perfect place to build Bridgeport. I mean,
That used to be an army training camp.
really?
Thus the hill. That was very intentional. They had to go up and down, and then they moved training base somewhere else, and then the Methodist Church bought it, and we've had it ever since. Crazy. So when you go to camps like that, you're completely isolated. You don't have the normal distractions. Your days are planned for you. So everything is very on purpose, intentional. Even when you have like maybe a free time or whatever, you're just kind of still getting your bearings on where you are, what's available, what you can do. So just to try and, kind of put a 10,000 feet thing on it, what were the things that you took home with you emotionally or experientially that you were like, whoa, I want to go feel those feelings again. I want to experience something like that again. What changed your perspective, your journey, your faith the most while you were there?
Do you mind if I? Okay. So the entire time I felt really touched by Jesus. I think I've grown up kind of going to these camps over the summer, not in the same style as midwinter, but I think once you get to that point of you're so constantly connected with people that are so like trusting in their faith, and it makes you trust them, and you're tired and you're running around. And so in those moments of just calm, it's really easy to feel very vulnerable. And I definitely had a lot of cries while we were there, and like, you feel very touched by the Lord's presence. And so I think the best moment of feeling this was actually the last day. It was our last worship, and I think it was "Oh, Come to the Altar."
Yes.
Oh, that I think I can speak for both of us.
We just hugged and cried after.
That wrecked both of us. I think that just looking around and seeing all of the kids just reaching their hands up to Jesus, and everyone was closing their eyes or crying or hugging each other or just embracing their friends, that was a moment where it just felt like I could just let go. And with so much going on just in everyday life, it was one of those moments of like, I'm here, I'm rooted in my faith, and there's so many beautiful things around me. It almost kind of gave me that feeling of like, nothing matters that deeply. And I think that was like, the entire camp was amazing, but that moment specifically, I think we cried the entire car ride home.
Yeah.
Like Kevin knows, we took the picture and we were both like so teary-eyed. Like,
I know, I had to like pull them out of the main worship room and be like, hey, I know y'all have got somewhere to be, and I want y'all to be able to be on your way. So we're going to take a picture, and they're both just looking at me, just like a photograph. in this moment, it's like, I know this is, timing can't be worse, but we got to do what we got to do.
We had been crying, and we went to get coffee after camp because there was scooters right outside Bridgeport, and we like sat in the drive-through line. I was trying to get my words out. My voice was gone. I was crying. Like, it's so funny. The poor person sounded so concerned.
But that Scooter's employee was supportive.
Oh, she was great.
I love that.
I would say my biggest takeaways from this camp, kind of spanning off of what Natalie said, was this all-encompassing peacefulness. And for me, it ties a lot back to what we learned today in Lent, is these retreats is a moment for you to really just step in. You can bring your sins, you can bring any frustrations you might be feeling for yourself, any shame you might be holding on to, any just things that are bothering you in your life or distracting you, and you just bring yourself before Jesus and with all these other people that you get to meet, and you can just strip away all of the distractions because your mind and your soul is so focused on God and the beauty of all these Christians being brought together and really having this place to simply focus on worship. There are so few times in this world where you have the moment to just set down the phone, set down the coffee, put down the schoolwork, and truly turn your focus to God and how you're feeling. How are you in this moment? Just taking away all the outside distractions and being there and being present. I struggle as a teenager in this society to hold on to present moments, especially with my faith. And these retreats are a time for people to truly do that. Just take a break from all of these outside things that get your mind spinning or make you feel too busy, and turn your attention to Christ and really just revel in the peacefulness that comes from doing that. And that's what midwinter really was for me. It was friendship, gaining experience from putting myself in uncomfortable situations, and gathering peace and insight from everything I learned and growing in my walk with God.
I love that. I can agree, like setting down your phone, occasionally like putting your homework to the side. I have to disagree about the coffee. That's where I encounter God so frequently, is in the morning with my coffee.
Espresso today.
So Kevin, I want to give you a chance to kind of, because you're going to see it from a different vantage point. You're often, I'm imagining, kind of standing in the back of the room during worship and kind of making sure that the Creekwood crew is doing well, or that somebody doesn't need help or something like that. So what are you seeing through all of this?
Yeah, it's fascinating. In fact, so I had coffee this morning with CJ.
Did you encounter God in your coffee?
Yes, but also mostly with CJ. It's my girl right there.
Shout out CJ.
So, and she brought y'all up. She was like, let's talk about Natalie and Emerson real quick. And I was like, happy to. Yeah. So because it's so fascinating, like, because some feedback like last Wednesday, right? Some of our middle school boys especially, and I'd say just our class, like our group in general, like during worship time, like looking around the room. And this was the case even on like mission trip last summer, right? Whenever you're with other groups during worship. So like the last couple of years, we've really at Creekwood made worship with the youth group more of a regular rhythm through worship Wednesdays and like fall retreat and all this. Like I think our kids have gotten used to like singing together in a general way. And then a lot of them, go to midwinter and see other groups that are like raising their hands and like being very expressive in worship. And one of them said in their small group on Wednesday, like, yeah, that was just kind of like hard to connect with. Like that's not how like I worship and everything. And so it's cool to see even amidst our group in connection with all of these other groups, but even like our internal diversity of like, yeah, we've got these kids who are like, they're feeling it. They're having a good worship experience. And that for them does not look like, putting the hands up and all that. And it's not necessarily especially emotive. And there are kids in our group who do experience it that way. And like the nurturing that can come from that, right? Like, especially in a camp scenario, and like midwinter is different from camp, is different from confirmation retreat, is different from XYZ, right? But like in kind of traditional Christian summer camps, that is like a realm that I enter and curate very carefully for students, because there are so many contexts that will see the emotive nature of worship and be like, yeah, these kids are not fully cognitively developed and are hormonal, and we can play some really good music and then tell them you're crying because you feel bad about something, and that's God. And like, and then, you know, and I mean, and it sounds absurd, but that is like a very real thing.
They've done documentaries about stuff like this where they just utilize the emotional nature that is camp, and they will manipulate middle school and high school kids into feeling things,
right,
and then use that to try and like get something, or get them to commit themselves to something that they are absolutely not prepared for yet.
Right. And that is, and I bring all that to say, like, instead, both, not just my ethos, but everyone, the directors at Midwinter, et cetera, is, I think there is value in that, catharsis, whatever.
When it's real, it's great.
Exactly, right? And there's like responsibility that goes with that. And in fact, that goes with the theme of the weekend, right? Of like ask, seek, knock. It's like, hey, this is what you need this to be. There are ways for it to be that, right? And like both of you all have said, like both of you all found out before you even arrived at camp, like you were in pretty similar places, and therefore came with some kind of clarity of like what this can and might be. And that really like fulfilled and like was so nurturing, versus, our 7th and 8th grade boys probably needed and were looking for something different from the weekend. And the fact that those things can coexist in the same space and not be competitive and in conflict with each other is pretty amazing.
And I will actually say, I think Emerson and I were the oldest in the Creekwood girls, maybe in the entire Creekwood group
there were
this time. But
upperclassmen,
oldest in the Creekwood, but significantly older for the Creekwood girls. I think everyone else was freshman, sophomore. And so I really think that we kind of took on older sister vibes.
100%. Yeah.
And you guys are so old.
It was so sweet though.
There were a lot of times where I felt like one of us would do something, and then the girls would be like, "Oh, I want to do that." And it was so sweet to see. But something I noticed, like stemming off of how some people aren't used to doing hands up worship or super emotional, because that's just not the way they worship. But I think we both definitely have done that a lot over the course of different churches, different camps, different worships. And I had noticed that there was one song where both of us were raising our hands, holding our hands, and I could see the younger girls looking at us like this and putting their hands up. Yeah. And
it's that kind of unspoken, like, was that okay?
Even one of the girls started to put it up, and then she held it for a little bit, and she put them down, because I think she realized, like, that's not my form of worship. Yeah. And so it is really interesting to see, like, I mean, there were some kids that were on their knees at the front of the stage, and they were just going full at it. There were kids in the back that stood and just hugged each other. No singing, no, like, movement, just sat and hugged each other. There were kids that were jumping up and down, kids that were singing and kind of swaying a little bit, and then just people kind of standing and just holding their hands up, heads down. Yeah. And so I thought it was really beautiful that all of these songs, especially "O Come to the Altar," they mean something different to everybody, and everyone feels them differently. So a song that can just absolutely wreck you, like you're on the floor crying, somebody else that will be like an upbeat, happy song that they're just kind of dancing and singing to. Yeah. So I thought it was really interesting to see. Just, I always talk about how I think people interpret scripture so differently, and it's interesting to see how even the songs, we're all listening to the same song, but we're hearing the lyrics completely different. Yeah. I think that was really interesting. For sure. Because the song that we were like sobbing to, there were other people just smiling and hugging and dancing, and I was like, it's just really interesting. Like, we're all in such different walks in our life, and we're all holding God's hand, but some of us are on a downhill walk and some of us are on an uphill walk, and I think it was just, it's cool to see. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Kind of going off of what Kevin said about not using like the vulnerability that you feel in these moments where you're connecting with God to kind of make you feel like you've got to make a confession, or having your strong emotions be coerced to some different meaning that doesn't align with you. And what you just said about how different people interpret these songs and kind of step out of their comfort zone to worship in different ways. I think Midwinter did such a fantastic job. All the mentorship, all of the just like kind of the general setup of the day and each sermon that was preached. I think Midwinter did such a wonderful job with allowing the openness of interpretation for each person, with the scripture that was provided, with the overall message of ask, seek, knock, with the sermons and the songs. I felt that everybody was allowed to just take the messages for what they were and apply them to their own lives how they chose and how they wanted to. They could take little pieces that they wanted from it and be like, how is this affecting me right now? Like there was this one sermon where he was like, God will always be there if you knock on that door, and whatever might be holding you down, you are allowed to, like, God knows that and he recognizes that. You're still allowed to go to him for things like this. And I noticed that Natalie had a particularly emotional response to that, and it's because we're given this openness to interpret everything how we would like to. Nothing is pushed on us. And that simple message for Natalie could have been like, I've been holding on to these fears and these anxieties for so long in my life. And for me, I might interpret that completely differently. And everybody was allowed to express their genuine feelings regarding everything without any influence really from other people trying to alter that. It was authentic, it was real, and it was comfortable. And that's what I really appreciated about the structure of everything.
So you're talking about how so many of the things were presented in sort of a one-size-fits-all way, like, hey, we are giving this entire group this message, and yet it was received in a one-size-fits-one way where everybody is hearing the same thing, but it is affecting them all and they're all hearing it differently.
Exactly.
And so my next question is, you two, I mean, you just said you were kind of the big sister roles in this weekend. And so you have this kind of, hey, we're coming towards the end of our time as being in youth before we go off into the college years and we, start hitting that chapter of our life. So as you're seeing this a little bit differently, as you're experiencing it a little bit differently, what is something that the youth group, not just the youth group here at Creekwood, but youth group in as a whole, 10,000 feet, what is the youth group not doing that they could be doing, that they even should be doing? Or what is something that you're like, man, I wish we would do this, but a little bit more like this? So this is your chance to kind of think about what your experiences are, not just for like midwinter camps, but summer camps, for Wednesday nights here, like for any other times that you gather with other church groups. What could be happening or should be happening that you're like, man, if we could only do this, man, we like everybody would get that much more, everybody would connect better, or whatever. Just,
or even if I can like tag on, like I also hear in that, like what are like the needs that you see that are maybe not fully addressed, or maybe not fully in focus as far as like how youth groups might try and focus on what the work even is.
I think it's really quick. Yeah, you got it.
It's on the top of my mind.
Yeah.
This is, to answer that question, this is kind of going off from what I gathered from a night that me and Natalie had, where we met with our youth girls.
That's what I was going to talk about too.
In our cabin, and I'll touch on it a little bit briefly so you can go into detail about that if you'd like. Mm-hmm. We kind of came back to our cabin, and it was like 11:40 at night, and me and Natalie, like you said, had been taking on the older sister roles in our group, and we noticed that one of the girls started critiquing herself in the bathroom mirror, and we we have grown up in this environment. We know what it's like to have women's bodies put on this pedestal of you must adhere to these standards in order to be beautiful, in order to be accepted in a room, in order to be respected. And just the lessons that we've learned from that, we took that moment and that kind of, I took it as a calling from God, seeing her critique herself, for us to impart our wisdom that we have gained over the years on these girls. And we went into this, I'd say, 40 to hour long kind of speech where we just really, like, in a really wonderful collaborative way, just bounced off of each other back and forth, mentoring our girls on self-love, how it's never it's never a straight A to Z path. You're going to have those setbacks where you're growing this relationship with comfortability in your body, especially as standards are honestly always changing.
Yeah.
And just kind of trying to make sure that they all felt worthy. I made them all turn to the mirror and say things like, you are loved. This body gives you strength. Everything that you see in front of you helps you move on from day to day. Like, you are so important. And whenever you question that, me and Natalie will be here at your defense, ready to remind you and ready to give you this love. And it's a constant battle. I'd say, not to make the focus purely on women, because men focus with this, struggle with this too. And probably the standard has made it to where they don't feel particularly comfortable at times expressing body image issues. But that's something we could definitely focus on with our youth, is making people feel comfortable with who they are as people. And it's a constant struggle with social media as well, because it's painting this image and impacting our younger girls and younger boys, or just younger people in general, so much to question their worth and question whether they are welcome in a room just for things like the way they've done their hair that morning. It's really important that we focus on just teaching them that God has given them all of this that they have for a particular reason, and all of these setbacks that they're going to face and all of these challenges that they're going to work through in the journey of self-love that happens for your entire life. All these setbacks come for a reason, and that every time you kind of triumph against them and work with God to gain comfortability with yourself, you are getting a little bit stronger and a little bit more resilient at facing the next issue that comes. Just kind of, I don't know, making them feel welcome with who they are as people.
I might get a little bit emotional with this one. Very emotional person. Same story, different branch off of it. But when we had gotten back that night, we had done a big thing of all getting ready together in the morning, all getting ready together at night, and
I'm getting chills.
I'm getting emotional, sorry. This girl in particular is someone I've watched grow up in church for the past 5 years, and someone I consider my little sister. I've taken her to lunch and we had breakfast, and seeing her every Sunday brings such a smile to my face. I care so deeply for this girl, and I've gone through a lot of struggles in my confidence. And coming in that night after such a loving night and just seeing her in that state, I think we can both agree, like, it hurt us to see her like that. It hurt me because, like, to me, like, I don't see her as just one of the girls at youth. Like, she's truly like a little sister to me. And it just made me think that Wednesday nights are such a beautiful thing for all of us. We're laughing, we're singing together on worship nights, eating dinner together, doing small games, doing groups, and it's incredible. But it also makes me think of a lot of people go to escape the week, restart,
Yes.
and just have fun. And that's amazing. But sometimes there's a lack of what should we be talking about that is personally affecting you? What are you going through with kids at school that aren't so nice to you? What are you thinking about at night when you're staring at yourself in the mirror? How do you feel after an argument with your parents? Children of divorce, how is it affecting your household and your family? And I think that everyone And I can speak for this for myself. Sometimes we're too afraid to what feels like ruining our Wednesday nights by kind of scraping past the surface into those difficult things. And I think that more vulnerability nights where we just sit down and we all cry those feelings out, we all talk about,
would be amazing.
I'm really struggling with this, because those girls in those rooms, 5 girls, it was hard to learn about the things that they're struggling. It took away that wholesome, these are just our youth girls. It hurt me personally to see these girls in this light. And I love all the girls equally, but especially just witnessing her doing that. It touched me on a very deep level. And so I think although we go to Wednesday nights to escape the negative things we face throughout the week, sometimes we do need people that aren't in our households, that aren't at our schools, that aren't at our practices for sports or theater or dance or swim, whatever, to talk to and say, I'm really going through it, and know that this is a place of trust. And there's so many things that I know those girls didn't even know that Emerson and I have gone through. And so for them to hear that from an older group of girls, like, I know that changed their perspective on some things of, I'm not going to be stuck in this forever. Because I remember going through those things and thinking, I'm not going to get out of this. And so for me and Emerson to see them thinking, oh my gosh, that was us 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 6 months ago, and then being able to see us and be like, we had no clue, and look where you guys are now. I think that's something that maybe in our youth setting, going into those things, that they are uncomfortable conversations.
Yes.
We don't want to show our vulnerabilities. We don't want to cry and take away the fun. Nothing matters here. Like, we can just have fun. We can just talk about the lessons and just feel lighthearted. I think there should be nights where we sit down, and it can be in small groups. It can be with a partner. It can be one-on-ones with our youth leads. But just sit down and say, I'm struggling, and I need to know that I have a resource to reach out to. Because having a personal conversation with that particular girl after our group conversation, I have thought that for months, these girls know they can reach out to me. And she said, I didn't want to bother you by talking to you about this. And it makes me just think how many people in our youth group are sitting there like, I don't want to ruin their Wednesday night. I don't want to ruin their Sunday. I don't want to ruin their retreat. But they're going through things, and they need someone to talk to that aren't in their families or their friends or their teachers. And I think we've, at Creekwood, built up such, I don't know that I've ever felt such love in a place. I have been in different churches in New Jersey from moving around different areas, and I can't say I've ever felt somewhere like I felt Creekwood.
I entirely agree.
And I know there's such a community of trust here that I know these kids would open up if they knew that they could. Because on a surface level, we know we can open up, but deeper than that, people are afraid to burden others with their problems, their insecurities, their family lives, even if it's just something as simple as, I bombed this test today and my parents are going to be so mad at me when I get home. I really need to talk this out and cry this out before I have to go home and deal with that. And I think we do a good job on that on a regular, but I know there are people that are afraid to have those deeper conversations on Wednesday nights.
So just to kind of try and put a bow on that, what I'm hearing is that you're talking about the value of having a safe space where you are encouraged to be vulnerable with the things that are going on that are overwhelming. There's some tissues, I think there. Oh gosh, might be out. Okay. So like creating that safe space so that somebody can feel like that I do have something that I just want to get off my chest and I didn't want to burden anybody, but creating an intentional space for that a little more regularly. I know exactly what you're talking about. When I was going to summer camp at Bridgeport, when I was in high school, it was Thursday night. We called it Cry Night. And I remember one year, like the weeks leading up to camp, because for all of us, we had been going, most of us had been going to the same camp since we were in middle school for years. And so for 7 years, we know that somebody's going to be there. There are people that'll come in for 1 year, 2 years maybe, and then you won't see them again. But we looked forward to it. So that Thursday, there was 1 year where they were, I think it was my junior year, they were going to try and cancel Cry Night because they're like, it's a bunch of, kids with their hormones all hopped up and they're just going to all cry in a room together. That doesn't seem very godly. And we ultimately ended up complaining enough and they were like, okay, fine, we'll let it happen. And then they just had a couple of the adult leaders just kind of in the room to make sure that nobody did anything they shouldn't. But Cry Night was like one of those things that we looked forward to. It was affectionately called Cry Night. That wasn't like it was just kind of I'm going to miss you guys. Yeah, they did. And Thursday night is going to be Cry Night. Come check it out. And so, but it was a way for us to all emotionally bond because everybody just like took our walls down. I get that. And as adults, we have nothing like that. Sure, so we just kind of bottle everything up until, we explode and get fired from a job or, kick all of our friends out of our lives, for some reason, because we never have those emotional wall broke down, I need to get this off my chest moments. And so I love that you are putting such an emphasis on that. And that's such an emotionally like freeing thing when you do know that you have that safe space. So that's fabulous that you saw that and organically took that on. I love hearing that.
Well, that's one thing, like this was our first time, certainly since I've been here, but even probably a few years before that we've done midwinter. We went to confirmation camp on purpose back in October, really trying to push, because like part of midwinter is also like, hey, there's like a week-long version of this in summer, so check that out. And going in, I was like, I don't know how successful this is going to be to like sell anyone on coming to like week-long camp in the summer. And then by the time the week was over, I was like, oh wow, I think actually a lot of these kids like had such a great experience and like would really want to. And like I don't want to get into like the Cry Night discourse, right? And one thing though that I do think is kind of back to that idea of like my job as like youth director or whatever, right, is to like say, hey, the door is open. Like you have options. And I'm not here to manufacture anything one way or the other, but like what you need it to be is there's safety in what that needs to be, right? And when it comes to these camp experiences, these big experiences, especially like you said, I mean, we can don't need to get all the way deep into the weeds of like our group comes from like kind of mostly 2 districts and largely like even one school, right? And so those questions of like that extra challenge of like vulnerability, and it's like, wow, there's so much love and trust, and also no one's ever like shaken that roller coaster safety bar of that trust before, and it is terrifying to think of like who's going to be the first one. So like we can do things, we've done fall retreat a few times, stuff with ourselves, but one thing that I think is lovely about those connectional opportunities like midwinter and like camp is that you have people who you're not going to have to see the next day, that if you do dare to trust and somehow that blows up in your face, even though you know up here that would not be the case because these are good, loving people, but still here it is that sticky cloud of anxiety of but that at the end of the day, moments like this, one big part of that value is that there's a reference point, right? It's not about living your life for the annual or twice annual, like, ooh, I'm just going to hold on to that till Cry Night, because that's something that commonly will happen, right? Is like,
those mountaintop
I'm waiting
moments,
for that.
They come, and they feel amazing when they do, and they are life shaping. But as a friend of mine who went to, she went to Bethel Church out in California for about 2 years because she was going to school out there, and she said every worship service like taps into that like emotive thing and kind of overwhelms you. And she said for a couple of years, worship was ruined for her because she had it programmed in her head. If you are not bawling your eyes out in worship, it just must be bad worship and there's nothing to gain from it.
Or it's not real. It's not legit.
It's not real because I'm not emotionally wrecked by the end of it. And it's just, emotion is such a huge part of worship, but there's also a incredibly large spectrum of emotions to pull from, not just I'm crying and I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah. Well, and like, is the experience the point? Or again, is it that reference point so that it's not like, ooh, I better hold on to that till the next time I get to release, but rather, for lack of like a better like metaphor or image, it is a way of like gradually, as all of faith is, like kind of metabolizing things as they go, right?
Metabolizing your emotions. I like that.
It's, I don't know, I've been using that word a lot lately.
That's a new summer series for you. Metabolize your emotions.
Yeah, it's very Magic School Bus body episode.
I can see it on a t-shirt right now. All right, so we're gonna close out. I want to give all three of you a chance to encourage somebody who has not gone to either a midwinter or a summer camp or a mission trip, something where these kind of magical moments happen. And like, it's just being in a place where you are growing, you're having a chance to give back to somebody or to a cause or something, whether it's a mission trip or a camp or whatever. Like, just, so I want to hear how you would encourage somebody who hasn't gone on one, why they should absolutely go, and just what you experienced that, give them your elevator pitch.
So I think my whole journey with Creekwood Youth has definitely been a leap of faith. I was not here at the beginning of a school year when I joined Creekwood youth group. It was my sophomore year, and I had gotten close with a girl, Kate Peabody. And shout out Kate Peabody. Could not have joined youth group without her, actually. But we had some common friends within Creekwood youth group and decided we should go one night. So I think it was one of the colder months. Maybe it was November. I don't know. But we had decided we should go to a youth group tonight. And so walking through the doors, and everyone kind of just looks at us, and we're like, oh, we don't belong here. And I like stand there and I'm like, Kate, we don't belong here. We don't belong here. And she's like, no, just keep walking. And then everyone was like, oh, we don't know them. Oh, we don't know them. And went over and just hugged us. And everyone was just chatting with us the whole night. And by the time we left, I was like, I don't know why I was ever afraid to step foot into the Wednesday night atmosphere. Boom. Yeah. And so then I started going to some of our retreats. I think my first one was Dark and Stormy. Dark and Stormy was my first one. And I was so nervous because I was like, okay, people that I don't really know are on this trip. Like, I don't know anyone going. I know some of the upperclassmen, but then one of them had kind of drawn out last minute. So I was just going in and I was like, I'll make friends with someone. And so going on all these retreats has, like, it's made me grow so much deeper in my faith. And talking to some of these people, knowing that we have common experiences, it has made me, I have started going to different Bible studies, holding Bible studies of my own, doing podcast listening with my mom, reading Bible study on the phone with friends from my hometown. And I had grown up going to a Christian camp called Tapawingo. I used to go 2 weeks out of the summer in upstate New York, and they have a CIT program. And I wanted to do it last year, and I was like, no way I am deserving to go preach to younger kids, younger girls, or girls that are even similar in age to me. I don't deserve to go preach to them because I am not a good enough Christian. And being in Creekwood and learning so much, joining SALT, and learning my voice is truly influential to others, but I can also learn so much back from them, I decided to reapply for the CIT position, and they ended up getting it. And going to midwinter and teaching those girls, I was worried about how I do as a CIT, but being there and seeming like mentors for those girls, being sisterly to them, they were our little sisters while we were there. We have a group chat now that we text on, and I check in on them, and it just made me realize that Creekwood has given me so many opportunities that I never once would have thought were possible, and even if they were indirect, it still has shaped me as a person today and how I live my life, and taking leaps of faith that I once wouldn't take before. I think that's one of the biggest things is I think Creekwood has not only led me in my faith, but made me such a confident person going to these trips and learning about new people, learning about different ways people interpret the Bible and songs, and it's not to sound cringy or anything, but it truly is life-changing going on these experiences, even if you have so much fear before going or things seem so uncertain before going. You don't know anyone there. You don't think that the people that are going are your crowd of people. You don't know if you're going to connect with the lesson that's been put out. But when you go and you're in that moment, it makes you realize that there are so many things that you can do with what you learn. And you make some of the most incredible friendships. A lot of my friend group currently has come from that dark and stormy retreat. I would not have been friends with these people because I don't think any of us thought we would be friends. And then we all hung out at that retreat and we were like, oh my goodness. And now we hang out at school and outside of school. And I think life-changing is the best way that I can put pitch going to the retreats and coming to Wednesday nights is you will gain something from it, even if you're not realizing it at the time. If you look back, if I look back at myself from sophomore year to now, the beginning of coming to Creekwood, youth groups versus now, I just don't think that walking through those doors as a very timid sophomore that I would be here on a Sunday night helping out with a podcast about our experiences, about how influential the people from Bridgeport were to us. Yeah.
Sorry to snatch the microwave. I just think it's cool and ironic in the best way that we spent so much of our time talking about this big kind of mountaintop moment with Bridgeport, but then when you're talking about life-changing, it's it's kind of the little stuff that's the life-changing stuff, right? It's the small stuff. It's not all about that mountaintop. So love that. Very cool.
Like Natalie said previously, so beautifully, might I add, those uncomfortable situations and those moments where you are uncomfortable conversations, those uncomfortable conversations and moments where you are just laying your heavy emotions out on the table, that is where, at least for me and from what I've seen from youth and other people around me in Creekwood, that is where true transformation and growth in your identity as a person happens. I joined Creekwood about a year ago, and when I did, I have gone back and forth in my faith. I've been baptized twice, and there have been so many moments where I've questioned, what is God? Who is God? What does that mean to me? And how do I feel that in my day-to-day life? Is this truly real? And I started to go to sermons where Kevin and Pastor Alex were preaching. And there was just this moment of, I'm seen here. There would be little parts of the sermons where I'd be like, I can feel God speaking directly to me. I can see how what is being said here is healing a part of my life that I'm not willing to bring to the table yet, or just getting ready to bring to the surface and bring to God and be like, this is me, this is what I'm struggling with. Help me learn from myself and learn my way through this. And as I have gotten more comfortable with the kids and the community at Creekwood and just grown as I've become more comfortable with these people at Creekwood, I have seen how accepted I am in a room of people. My first experience was going to the biscuit retreat, and I was like, oh, this is so silly. I was like, I should be doing homework or doing these other things. I don't know if I'm going to go. And my little sister Harper, who actually was the one who got me to start going to Wednesday night worships, got me to go to this biscuit retreat. And like Natalie said, it is life-changing. I went, and it actually started with, I'm a baker and I like to bake, and I've been going through this period of struggling to find hobbies or things that really call to me. And the whole sermon was centered around ingredients and baking something and what ingredients in your life create this product of what you are and what you how you build your relationship with God. And I was like, a feeling that I've felt so many times throughout the sermons is, this is God speaking directly to me. I'm meant to be here. I'm meant to be hearing this. I am welcome here. I am ready to receive what is being said. And me and my little sister, we've said this multiple times after the experience, is I have never felt closer to you. These moments where you can get away and go on these retreats are moments of pure, uninterrupted connection. You are surrounded by the love of God. You're surrounded by forgiveness. You are given space to reflect and truly just communicate how you're feeling with the people around you. And me and her, we talked about things like our fears, our insecurities. I hadn't actually known really any of the kids at Creekwood. I didn't know their names. But at the end of the retreat, we all wrote letters to ourselves. And I spent that night spending nearly 2 hours at least writing these long letters to everybody, just telling them how they impacted me, because these times are just, it's life-changing. You're able to just talk to people and be accepted. And that's what I've noticed the most throughout my time in Creekwood and throughout time at Midwinter as well, is a growth in my identity. I've struggled so many times with who I am as a person. What do I like? What makes me feel myself the most? Because over this year of growing in my journey with God, I've developed who I am as a person so much. And there's still a lot of questions and a lot of unanswered things. And I've learned to not face that with so much doubt, but rather acceptance. And I feel the most accepted whenever I'm at these places, because I can just learn. I came home from Midwinter and did an audio journal for around an hour. And at the end, I was just crying, saying, I'm proud of myself. Like, I love myself. And it's been so hard to come to a point where I've been able to say that. But the reason I am is because I'm able to just express freely at these retreats and learn who I am as a person, because what I'm speaking outwardly it's not obstructed or filtered through anything like, am I being perceived correctly? Is this person someone comfortable that I can express these things to? Will I be accepted in this space? Are these people friends? It's all stripped away because you're safe. And those moments are where I can really just learn the most from myself. And it's been so incredibly healing. And that's the biggest pitch I can give, is if you have ever struggled with self-doubt or just not being familiar with yourself, these moments are times where you can truly learn and truly grow in your relationship with everybody around you. Creekwood has changed my life, and these retreats have changed my life.
Emerson didn't sell y'all on that. I don't know well.
All right, Kevin.
I would say mine is, I hesitate to use the word more clinical, but maybe, I don't know, just like practical and just totally different context. Wednesday night and Sunday mornings it is like I am the engineer in the engine of the train shoveling coal. And like I get to do the things, but I'm not especially present because this train's got to run on schedule kind of deal. And on retreats and at camp especially, my role is just fundamentally different. And I get to be so much more present. I don't like those words I used to use, but they're the only ones I really have, which is like me and all the other youth ministers, because they mix up the kids and groups and everything. It is like you get a new batch of kiddos, and usually 1 or 2 is like from Creekwood, but all the rest are new. And so it's like, I'm not playing the long game the way that I am here. It's like, no, I've got 1 week to just give 100% to this batch of kids. And that is its own thing, even just for me personally. So I love that.
So if you haven't thought about going to youth or going to camp or midwinter or anything of the sort, come talk to anybody on this podcast. We have resources, we have suggestions, and you should definitely do that. So thanks for hanging out. This is a fun episode.
Having us.
Yes.
for having
I
us.
feel so honored to be at a point where I can like, I don't know, I feel so honored to be on the podcast because I've been a part of the Creekwood family for a shorter period of time than a lot of these kids, but I've been accepted with just open arms and love, and I don't know, I feel really honored to be given a position to be here with you guys.
We loved having both of you. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
So thanks for hanging out. We'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.